Everybody and their mother is weighing in on the Proxy fight. Oh my goodness, mercy sakes alive. If they could raise people from the dead to endorse Bob Iger, they would do it. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is Vash Sky. Vash, do you endorse or deny the divinity of Bob Iger?
Ooh, I might have to question that divinity status there. Right? And look, I used to be an Iger acolyte, man. I used to look up this guy and go, you know what? He is the best person for the job. And unfortunately, with this recent track record, I don't necessarily believe that. But we know a lot of people who do.
Yep, that's true. When Ride of a Lifetime came out, I got that thing on Audible, and I 2x'd that thing. And I enjoyed every minute of it until I started to realize that maybe some of it was really the ride of a lifetime. But let's talk about a series of people who have all endorsed Bob Iger here. It looks like Laurie Powell Jobs has thrown her support behind the Disney board and Bob Iger in the Proxy fight. This from March 21st from Alex Weprin. Let's get to the quote. My family and I have been significant investors in the Walt Disney Company for nearly 2 decades, and in that time, we have seen the company transform thanks to the steady and visionary leadership of Bob Iger and Disney's expert board of directors. What has always set Disney apart is the way it combines unbridled creativity with technological innovation and tell timeless stories that inspire and enrich the world around us. There is no one who understands Disney's important legacy or the responsibility to protect it more than Bob Iger. He is a once-in-a-generation leader with an ambitious vision for the future, and we as shareholders are fortunate to have him guiding us through guiding this cherished company at such a crucial moment in its history. I urge my fellow shareholders to support Bob and the company's slate of highly qualified director nominees. It's a funny thing. I'm not going to say that her holding isn't legitimate. It obviously is legitimate. It's as legitimate as like Perlmutter's. It's funny to see the word significant investors used when we're talking about the fact that Steve Jobs sold the Walt Disney Company Pixar and then was on the board for a long period of time. I wouldn't necessarily call Pixar an investment into the Walt Disney Company, but I guess technically the word is accurate in this case.
I think so, I guess. I mean, this is obviously she has direct connections with Steve Jobs, so she's kind of playing this line right here. It was one of the last things, her late husband ever did. So it's like, you kind of have to, you have to be careful with the language, let's say, right? It's all about those optics. I'll say this. It's interesting that Lorraine is getting involved in this way because, I mean, from what I understand, her and Ike Perlmutter kind of scuttled plans to have Tom Staggs be the next CEO. So it's interesting that she's really kind of throwing her hat in the ring and her support behind Iger in this way. Again, she is a massive shareholder. At the time that the Pixar deal was done for $7 billion or so, half of that was in stock. So outside of maybe Murdoch or some of these others, she might actually be the one of the largest individual shareholders at the company right now. So her what she says holds a lot of sway.
Right, and of course, the largest individual shareholder would be George Lucas, of course, and he endorsed Disney and CEO Bob Iger in the Proxy fight. We've already talked about this one a little bit.
Sure.
The uncharacteristically unkind, creating magic is not for amateurs quote. That was, of course, we all have our suspicions about what happened there. Of course, we've talked about on this channel the fact that Jamie Dimon, endorsed Bob Iger, and Jamie Dimon also sits on the board of J.P. Morgan Chase with Melody Hobson, who is George Lucas's wife. To me, there is a chain there where I can see how that might have occurred down the line, and why something that wasn't usually in George Lucas's usual voice might be said under his name. Not necessarily a conspiracy theory, just an easy explanation that doesn't bother me too much. It's a nice, tidy explanation there. But he's not the last one we're talking about here. No, a voice from the past has reached out. There are some people who know where I'm going with this, and some people who think I'm talking about the other guy. But which one is it? It's Bob Weiss. Former Imagineering president Bob Weiss voices support for Disney CEO Bob Iger amid proxy fight. This from Britt Tuttle of WDWNT. There he is, Bob Weiss, right there. No, I'm just kidding.
If you don't know who Bob Weiss is, folks, very instrumental in terms of the direction of WDI for the last, I want to say 20 years or so, up until the most recent time period, obviously. We talked about his eventual successor with Barbara Boza and how they actually switched places at the top of Gensler. This guy holds a lot of sway in the creative community, especially around architectural design firms and Walt Disney Imagineering itself.
Yes, I respect this guy. He says, I have been in this business for almost 4 decades. Bob Iger is a mentor and guiding North Star for me. Disney exists because of a synergy between story and art and placemaking and experience and quality. Weave those together and they form a successful business plan because people have a high expectation and an emotional connection that needs to be respected, fostered, and expanded. As Walt himself said, keep moving forward. See, what's funny is that quote to me is now Sylvester Stallone's, but yep, Walt probably did say that. Bob Iger has kept us moving forward by investing in talent and ideas, respecting the past, but insisting on an innovative future and being willing to experiment even when the odds sometimes look tough. Without this level of leadership grounded in storytelling, experience, art, talent recognition, and moving ahead, it's a rudderless ship. Enormous potential with no ability to steer. I was grateful for each meeting I had with Bob, however challenging he might have been with us, and I remain grateful to the company I care so much about. And I remain grateful the company I care so much about continues under his steady hand. He makes it look easy, but no one should make the mistake of thinking it is. Bob Weiss, former president, WDI. This is fascinating. You would think that they're saying that Nelson Peltz is going to come in and immediately remove Bob Iger.
Right. Or even sideline the creative vision that Bob Iger has. This is very interesting how it's all about Bob. And we just, talked about Lorraine's comments too. That was a lot about Bob as well. Bob is not at issue here. He's not even in play. It's 2 board seats out of a board of 12. What are we doing right here? Now, I understand Weiss has an association with Bob going back a long time, helped run Herd on the Disney Hollywood Studios project. At the time, that was Disney MGM Studios, and then helped reimagine DCA into DCA 2.0 that opened in 2012, and was the person behind the Shanghai project. So I get it. He has that association with Bob, but why reference him in these glowing terms over and over and over again when he's not even up for a vote when it comes to the CEO position?
Yeah, I would say that Bobs have to stick together, but I don't know if Bob realizes that this Bob betrayed the other Bob in order to get Bob's job back. And you gotta worry about the Bobs in the different jobs.
Oh, you do have to worry about the Bobs in the different jobs.
Lorraine Powell jobs, she did endorse this Bob for the job. But anyway, I digress.
It's amazing.
That being said, this is not, of course, the other person that we want to reveal here. If you already know, this is amazing. If you don't know, guess what?
Josh Gad? Oh,
okay. Yes, Josh Gad did the voice of Olaf did endorse Bob Iger, but Michael Eisner backs Disney CEO Iger amid board fight with activist investors. The company is now in excellent hands. This by Todd Spangler, one of my favorite reporters over there at Variety. I know that sometimes I have a dry sense of humor. I legitimately respect Todd Spangler's reporting. It's great stuff. In 1983, Disney was under attack by corporate raiders trying to take over the company, Eisner wrote in a post on X. That would have ended the Disney company as we know it, for the studio, theme parks, and hotels were suggested to be sold off. The board turned to me and then President Frank Wells, emphasis on what time this was going on. And a different story was written, one that was continued by Bob Iger and his executive team. Today, a similar situation exists, so let's remember the lesson from 40 years ago. Not 20, but 40, bringing in someone who doesn't have experience in the company or industry to disrupt Bob and his eventual successor is playing not only with fire, but earthquakes and hurricanes as well. The company is now in excellent hands, and Disney shareholders should vote for the Disney slate. Again, this seems to be an emphasis on Peltz kicking Iger out of the job. I got to say, it is not his modus operandi. He does not go in and kick out CEOs. That's just not something he has done in any of the proxy fights that he is engaged in. At the most, he gets someone on the board. He might suggest managers here or there, or the quote unquote shadow management team, which is his people that he has go in and investigate what's going on within a company. But he doesn't kick CEOs out, and I don't think that that is his way of doing business. Now,
No.
he might
And
like
when
a
did
say in who the successor is, and I think there's a legitimate concern there that
that's fair.
Bob Iger doesn't have a good history of picking his own successor.
Well, that is very true. I mean, we played that carousel a couple of times now, and it hasn't necessarily always worked out well for the Walt Disney Company. In fact, it's worked out very poorly. But I'm sorry, when did Nelson Peltz become Saul Steinberg from the 1980s? Attempt to greenmail and take over the Walt Disney Company and sell it for parts? I mean, this is insane. This is absolutely crazy sauce how we're comparing to Financial Titans, obviously, but with very different goals and end goals, as stated by those people right there. This is what okay. So you know, having what only 10 rubber stampers on a board of 12 is now somehow earthquake and hurricanes. I just
I don't get it. I don't get it myself. And which of course brings us to our last two endorsements. I'm gonna go very quickly over one. This would be Glass Lewis, one of the two major proxy advisors, along with ISS. Recommended that Disney shareholders vote for the company's director nominees and not for Trian's candidates, which includes Peltz. Well, of the major two, well, guess what? ISS has endorsed Nelson Peltz. Which is interesting here. They go through this whole thing, and this article is from the Wall Street Journal and Lauren Thomas. Sorry, I'm not going to go deep into it, but as we talked about on That Park Place Live, and we had a great discussion there about it. ISS has endorsed Nelson Peltz specifically and said that they are voting to withhold on Marielena Lagomasino because of her compensation issues here. She's the one who signs Bob Iger's checks, and I guess ISS is pointing out. And by the way, when they talk about the white paper that Nelson Peltz came out with, that they're saying is inaccurate or whatever, that came from ISS. Not the entire thing. They often quote ISS in that. That is Institutional Shareholder Services.
Yes, and ISS were profoundly instrumental in actually providing the CEO-ship of Iger that he holds currently. Well, I guess
right. That's the entire thing here that I'm getting around to.
Oh, sorry.
Here, no, it's fine. The thing that I want to point out is they are saying yes to Peltz, no to Lagomasino, yes to Michael B.G. Froman, who's the president of the Council of Foreign Relations, and Disney says they need him on the board, and they're saying no to Jay Rasulo right now, which, they haven't really fully articulated why, but that's fine. That's their prerogative. I think the nuance in the fact that they aren't saying fully yes or fully no actually indicates that they are thinking fully through this. Now,
That's fair.
maybe that's part of the game theory here, that they want to appear that way. The thing that is very interesting, of course, about ISS is that 20 years ago, ISS voted against Michael Eisner, or recommended against Michael Eisner, and 43% of shareholders disapproved of Michael Eisner, and he resigned from his CEO position shortly after that. So I don't know. Eisner actually issued his statement after ISS came out and said that they aren't endorsing Bob Iger. And I will say one thing as well. You know how I mentioned that book, Right of a Lifetime, the Bob Iger story, the Bob
Yes.
Iger story. That was actually one of the moments that made me realize that Bob Iger is actually Eisner 2.0, and changed my opinion of him quite a bit. He was also one of the few people. He was one of the few people I've seen that would issue a full-throated defense of Michael Eisner, and maybe say some unkind things about Roy Disney. And I'm not going to repeat them here because they're maybe not worth repeating.
I do like how a little bit of this history is revealed with Michael Eisner's statement. Everybody else talked about Bob Iger. Michael Eisner talked about himself. It was great.
That's a very good point.
Right?
Which brings me to well, I said this on Twitter, and I'm always going to call it Twitter because it's more fun to say Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Of all of these statements, if I have any doubt that other people were handed a statement and signed off on them, I don't doubt at all that Michael Eisner is Michael Eisner, because it sounds like Michael Eisner.
It sounds like Michael, and
He should have started with "Hello, I'm Michael Eisner."
yeah, exactly. And his signature move there in the Grand Ole Office that he used to give those things in would have been great. But no, obviously Michael Eisner for sure. He duplicated those comments on Twitter, which was interesting to see, and a lot of people have been commenting all day on those things. I'll just say this: Iger is cashing in, right? He is cashing out on every single favor that he has in this desperate attempt to hold power on all fronts. By the way, again, these are 2 board seats, and they're bringing out all the stops here. They're everybody's voicing either their support for Bob Iger and his board or not, and you just got to think. What do they know that we don't? Why are they so desperate for all these moves right here? I'm thinking they may have necessarily read some independent polling and saw that, we're not necessarily in the good graces of shareholders anymore, or they have something to hide. I have no idea, but I've never seen this kind of response from the Walt Disney Company. I've been covering this company almost my entire life.
Oh, that you're absolutely correct. And according to Peltz, they've spent at least $40 million specifically on this proxy fight, which is a drop in the bucket when they're talking about when they will announce collaborations that are not even the ink is not even dry on, like the Epic Games one for 1.5 billion. By the way, Fortnite is going to build the Disney Fortnite mode using their own money, except that Disney is also going to be paying them $1.5 billion for equity in the company. I wonder if there's any connection between that transfer of wealth there. Of course, there is so much going on here. We could get into all of the strange things that are going on with the Walt Disney Company right now. Of course, we're waiting to find out who else might be endorsing Bob Iger or Nelson Peltz in the lead up to the April 3rd shareholders meeting. I am looking forward to it myself. Until that moment, though, if you could hit the like button, we would appreciate it. It helps to boost the channel. And if you have any comments, we love to read them. I really do go through every single comment. And we have some of the most intelligent commenters in the world, and then a couple who probably believe they are the most intelligent commenters in the world.
We love them all the same, though.
That's right. That's right. And of course, if you wouldn't mind, if you would consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.